If Henry had survived Alpha, his character arc in The Walking Dead could have been something special. He was still a kid, but he had that stubborn streak of wanting to do the right thing no matter what. That kind of personality usually ends up shaping a strong leader in this world. He already had Ezekiel and Carol as examples, so it's not hard to imagine him growing into a role where he tried to balance Ezekiel's hopefulness with Carol's realism. As he got older, Henry probably would have been the one to bridge gaps between communities. He was already showing compassion to Lydia, despite everyone else being suspicious. That open-mindedness would have made him the type to step into diplomacy naturally. Imagine him a few years later, standing alongside people like Aaron or Maggie, being one of the voices saying, hey, maybe we don't need to fight every single battle if we can just understand each other. On the flip side, Henry still had that hot-headed side. We saw him sneak off to take matters into his own hands more than once. If he had lived, that recklessness could have either gotten him killed later or forced him to learn how to channel it into something smarter. Watching him make mistakes, survive them, and grow wiser from them would have added layers to his character, almost like Carl's development, but in his own way. Another interesting angle is his relationship with Lydia. If Henry had stuck around, their bond could have become a centerpiece for showing how the new generation handled trauma differently. Instead of letting the world break them, they could have leaned on each other. That relationship could have evolved into a symbol of what new beginnings really look like, a future not defined by old grudges or endless cycles of revenge. With time, Henry could have stepped into that next Rick type of role, not because he was anything like Rick, but because he would have been the next generation's anchor. The show needed more younger survivors making it into adulthood, and Henry had the right mix of empathy and toughness to eventually lead. He would have grown into a character who understood both the pain of loss and responsibility of guiding others through it. And let's not forget Carol's side of it. Henry surviving would have completely changed her trajectory. Instead of spiraling deeper into grief, she might have found a different kind of strength in protecting him and watching him grow. Their relationship could have been one of the emotional cores of the story, showing how even in all that darkness, family could still shape people for the better. Overall, Henry's survival could have given us a long-term storyline about growth, second chances, and the next generation stepping up. He was in that perfect spot, old enough to start understanding the world's weight, but young enough to represent hope. Losing him cut that short, but if he had lived, he might have been one of the most important young leaders in a post-apocalyptic world. If Henry had made it past Alpha, his story could have added some real depth to the later seasons. Think about the Commonwealth arc. We had Ezekiel, Carol, and the others stepping into that world, but Henry would have been at the perfect age to really struggle with it. He grew up knowing only communities that were built out of survival, so stepping into a place with working electricity, ice cream, and structure would have hit him in a different way. He probably would have had moments of questioning whether it was too good to be true, or whether people were losing touch with what the outside world really was like. He could have also been a key figure in keeping the new generation connected. Imagine him building friendships with Judith and RJ, kind of filling that older brother role Carl would have had if he'd survived. He could have been the one teaching them how to fight while also talking to them about the importance of making decisions that didn't repeat old mistakes. That younger crew needed someone to bridge the gap between them and the adults, and Henry was right in that sweet spot. On a more personal note, Henry surviving would have really developed his identity separate from just being Carol and Ezekiel's kid. His own experiences, saving Lydia, trying to handle conflicts his way, showed he had a strong will of his own. We could have seen him carving out a reputation for himself, proving he wasn't just protected by his parents' legacy. That would have been interesting to watch, especially as he got older and started making his own mark. Henry also had that sense of justice, that thing where he couldn't just sit back and let bad things happen. If he had been around during all the power struggles with Pamela Milton and the Commonwealth elites, he probably would have been one of the loudest voices calling out the unfairness. He might have been young, but his bluntness could have been exactly what the story needed to highlight how broken those systems were. And let's be real, Henry wasn't perfect. He probably would have clashed with people like Daryl. That hot-headedness and the need to prove himself could have led to serious arguments, but at the same time, those conflicts could have been some of the best parts of his growth, showing how Daryl, Carol, and Ezekiel all tried to guide him in different ways. Watching him figure out his own path in the middle of all that would have been a natural coming-of-age storyline. Another cool angle is how he could have been a living reminder of the what if with Carl. Carl was supposed to represent the future, but when he died, that torch was kind of left hanging. Henry was already stepping into similar territory by trying to see the humanity in Lydia and by wanting to make the world better instead of just surviving it. If he had made it, he might have become that next hope for the future figure the show needed. His story could have helped tie up Carol's arc in a way that felt less tragic. With Henry alive, Carol's whole purpose wouldn't have just been loss after loss. She could have had moments of watching him succeed, seeing him love, and eventually letting him lead. That kind of payoff, Carol finally being able to rest, knowing her son was strong enough to carry the torch, would have been huge for the emotional side of the series. If Henry had been allowed to grow up, the writers could have used him as one of the clearest examples of how the apocalypse shaped kids differently from adults. He didn't have memories of the old world in the same way the grown-ups did, so he wouldn't be held down by nostalgia. Instead, he would have focused on shaping a future that felt fair and safe for people his age and younger. That perspective could have created some powerful storylines, especially when older survivors were stuck in their ways. By the time the Commonwealth storyline came around, Henry could have been a serious voice for reform. We saw how corrupt and class divided that place was, and Henry's natural sense of justice would have put him front and center as someone who refused to accept it. He probably would have been one of the younger faces in protest, standing up against Pamela Milton, showing that even the next generation wasn't going to tolerate old world corruption. His bluntness and straightforward morality would have made him hard to ignore. Another thing is that Henry had a protective streak, especially when it came to people he cared about. That trait could have grown into him becoming the type of fighter who risked himself to shield others. It's easy to imagine him mentoring younger kids in self-defense, kind of paying forward the protection and teaching he got from Carol and Ezekiel. In that way, he'd be one of the characters carrying on the we protect each other philosophy that Rick started. Henry surviving would have also made for interesting interactions with Negan. Negan killed Glenn and Abraham long before Henry's time, but as Henry grew older, he would have had to reckon with Negan's presence in the community. His youthful sense of right and wrong could have led to some heated conversations with Negan about redemption, forgiveness, and whether people really can change. That could have been an underrated dynamic, Henry testing Negan in ways no one else could. In terms of relationships, it's not crazy to think that Henry and Lydia's bond could have blossomed into something long-term. Their shared trauma and shared hope made them a natural pair. Seeing them grow together, support each other, and maybe even start a family one day would have been symbolic for the whole series. It would have proven that even in the apocalypse, love and renewal were possible. That's the kind of new beginning the show kept hinting at but didn't always fully deliver. Henry would have also given the writers a chance to show what it looks like when a kid grows into an actual leader without losing their compassion. So many leaders in The Walking Dead got hardened, jaded, or downright ruthless. Henry might have been the rare one to hold on to his humanity. Watching him balance his mom's survivalist mentality with his dad's optimism would have been a storyline with depth and a lot of heart. And maybe most importantly, Henry's survival would have shifted the legacy of the show's younger generation. Instead of Judith being the only one left to carry on Carl's vision, Henry would have shared that weight. Together, they could have been the foundation of a new world. Judith carrying Rick and Carl's influence, and Henry carrying Carol and Ezekiel's. That partnership could have been one of the strongest ways the series showed real hope for the future, proving the next generation was ready to do better than the one before. But anyway, y'all, I'll see you in the next one.